Good morning, everyone. Why am I here? We get probably 10 to 12 requests for speaker engagements every week, and I cannot tell you how quickly I jumped on this one. First off, during my undergrad, I used the NICE framework as part of my curriculum when going through both the cyber defense and the pen testing curriculum in my coursework. So I cannot speak more highly of those programs and the benefit that they provide, just as a means of touching something to tell your students of how something works. But more importantly, I've not been so fortunate to have the same number or to live in the same place as, we see on TV, like Boy Meets World, and having a teacher like Mr. Feeney who's there every step of the way. However, I have had teachers who have provided me with some wonderful life lessons, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank them now. So Coach Cook for asking me a question that it's been 23 years and I still remember it, and I still think I gave a great answer as a middle schooler, but it is something I still struggle with to today. For Miss Nelson for teaching me that Eminem is the best poet of my generation, and I'll die for that statement. And lastly, Carrie Stubinger. She was never my teacher, but she was such a wonderful impact on her students that when I was going through something in high school, they all told me to talk to her. I don't remember what she said to me, but I can tell you that that conversation is directly related to the steps that brought me here today. So for every student that you'll never talk to again that you've made an impact on, thank you. And thank you so much for the work that you all do. I cannot be more excited to be here. So, what is Unit 42? It is not a DoD unit. I know I had DoD written all over my background. It's not DoD. However, they are a premier cyber threat intelligence unit. And in 2020, Unit 42 is combined with Crypsis, a digital forensics consulting firm. So now, Unit 42 is a worldwide forensics consulting firm where we deal with advanced persistent threats or just ransomware groups across every industry. And all of that investigation work goes and feeds the Cyber Threat Intelligence Unit, which then feeds the public interest. We work very hard to ensure that all of our products that we put out provide everyone with the ability to protect themselves. But we're not here for every industry. We're here for K12. From 2016 to 2022, the group K12 said that there were 1,600 incidences, and I can tell you firsthand that that number is woefully low. That requires a lot of required disclosures, and having worked certain cases, I can tell you that if the minimum requirement is not met, most people won't want to disclose it. It's just the nature of the beast. No one wants to look bad. And I don't blame anyone in here if that's been the case. I don't want to look bad either. So what I can tell you is that in 2020, chaos ensued for everybody in this room when you had to go digitally at home. And none of the incidents numbers up here count Zoom bombing or your students telling you that their webcam didn't work. This is all ransomware, phishing, things of that nature. NIST put out numbers at the end of 2022. In 2021, there were 300 events. In 2022, by the time they had counted, there were 350. That count stopped in September of 2022. We're a year later, and those numbers are not going down. I can tell you that GOA, which is part of the government organization, has said that education is now the top sector. And if we look at the date on that one, that was almost directly a year ago. But it doesn't end there. It just keeps going and going. You all deal with more events and more attacks every day dealing with your student data or your industry and your district having to pay out for ransomware attacks or just other cyber threats. It's the nature of the beast now. And it's not something we're ever going to get away with. If we do look at those slides that just flashed across your page, you'll see payment after payment after payment. And for me, the biggest insult to that is all money taken out of your budgets and away from your students. However, ChatGPT rolled in and chaos ensued once again, and your students are using it to write papers that are terrible. So ChatGPT, Tesla's autonomous driving, those are all advanced, narrow intelligences, meaning that they are very good at one very simple thing. And there's a ton of them out there. ChatGPT, Bard, who I use to help me write this presentation in an effort to shorten my Google searches, because that's a lot of work. And then there's my new favorite one, Magic School. It is a AI type product that is designed for students or teachers to help build curriculum and provide you with videos and all of the things that I am terrible at when I develop my own curriculum. And then there's the flip side. You have Worm GPT. It is there to help people write spear phishing emails and malware and things that we don't want to deal with. But it does exist. And that's just the most popular one that I could find without having to do a lot of additional BARD searches, by the way. But it does exist, and it's one that I've had to use or go against in my investigations. But the big thing about all of these is hallucination. If I were to ask you what 2 + 2 is, everybody here is going to say 4, yeah, right? So if I told you that my wife is the smartest person in the world, and she says 2 + 2 is 5, you're all going to tell me I'm wrong, right? Yeah, exactly. However, AI is dumb, and we can constantly tell it 2 + 2 is 5, 2 + 2 is 5, 2 + 2 is 5, and eventually it'll say, oh yeah, 2 + 2 is 5. And it's because it is still learning. And while that learning is part of that hallucination, it is also the way it interprets the questions that you ask. AI hallucination is this idea that it's giving us the wrong information, and it doesn't realize that it's giving us wrong information. And so when we are using AI, whether it's your students or yourselves, you have to be on the lookout for that. The other thing is we have human error. All of these AI systems are built by humans. That means there's going to be mistakes. I mean, you've seen your students' papers. There's human error in those all the time. If you saw my paper, you'd be like, yeah, that's a terrible human error. But those are the things we have to look out for. And you can look at this, and we can talk about AI being targeted toward K-12. I've talked about papers all day long. It's probably the most blatant use of AI that you're probably going to see. But what it has really done against the K-12 industry is allowed for the people to use it that don't understand the consequences of it. We can speak all day about everyone making a choice, but if we ever talked to a student who's trying to get around a school proxy to go look at some dirty joke or, just wants to get on YouTube, that's where I think the biggest vulnerability and the biggest threat for K-12 is going to be, is because you have a woeful amount of people and students that are trying to get around your security devices, not for the effort of just being dumb and getting around security devices, but because they're interested. They want to explore, and that's the nature that we want in students, is for them to explore. But AI allows them to make mistakes without seeing the consequences firsthand. We can rewind this and look at Eternal Blue, which everyone here will probably recognize as WannaCry, was a virus that was designed to target a specific group. But in 48 hours, it crippled governments and almost the entire UK health sector. And then we can rewind back to the 1980s and look at the Morris worm. A student named Morris wrote a worm that was supposed to show his school, hey, here are the vulnerabilities. Well, what he didn't realize was that his school was attached to the DoD, so the worm spread from his school to the DoD and then to another school. It's a massive thing that happens over and over again because people don't realize the power of what they're working with. And that's what AI does. I want to take a second, I'm going to have to move here, to read the second half of this paragraph, which I'm going to paraphrase because I can't read it from here. But basically it says, this was my search to BARD after hundreds of hours of asking BARD to give me different articles and information about cyber threats. It says that these numbers are low and that teachers have to be considerate as threat actors become more sophisticated and recognize that cyber attacks are going to happen. So they need to be prepared. And that's where we are today. You all are the pivot point. You're at this pivot point. You're at this spot where you all have to make a choice, and I cannot tell you how proud I am of everyone in this room and everyone at this conference for making the choice to be here. You're putting your education so that way you can help yourself, your students, your school districts, and I applaud you all. So I ask you, as you're here, to be the sponges we all want our students to be and to absorb the information so that way you can be the better option. That way you are not the hallucination that we all think our teachers are when we're not paying attention. And, waka waka. You all have the opportunity to learn something from the brilliant people that are here. And so thank you very much. Have a wonderful week.